Well, this past Sunday we wrapped up the sermon series, A Trip Around the Sun, that you only get on average 78 trips around the sun, and each year you would hope to make better than the last. I would caution, as we've been talking about New Year's resolution, January, we're putting that behind us. Many of us have probably broken those New Year's resolutions. They haven't lasted. Usually because we do them in increments that we think we can control, that work for us. And then we find out that that's just easy to push to the side and go back to our old habits. And I think really the adventure of faith is what Mark Batterson talks about in his book about a trip around the sun, is to realize that each year we really need things that are significant in our lives, moments that are monumental. And they don't have to be every day, but most of the time our ordinary days tend to lead us up towards something we're planning to be very impressive in our lives, something we're looking forward to. One simple example is that most people think that at the new year they want to get lose some weight, they want to lose a few pounds, they want to get healthier. And I think spiritually you might be willing to do something like a fast. And if you did a 3-week fast and you spent a lot more time in prayer and in the Word as you have those hunger pains and you struggle, and you want to do it appropriately, and you want to read up on it, and you want to prepare for it. But if you do that, you will make that year far more memorable than just trying to cut out desserts with your evening meal. And the same can be true about exercise. If you're going to do something like exercise, instead of thinking you're just going to go for a walk and try to get 20 minutes in every 3 or 4 days, if you put yourself out there and said, you know what, I want to walk for a cause. Can I get 1,000 miles this year for raising money to something that I'm passionate about, or maybe a ministry that I want to support? I even encourage families to say, don't just think about this for you. What is it, something that would be significant for your family? Instead of taking a vacation, can you take a mission trip? Whether it just be for a few days at a community a few hours away, or if it's a full week and there's a ministry you've been passionate about, you've been hearing about, and you just finally sit the family down and you say, you know what? We'll always have a time for vacation. We'll always figure out how to go to the lake or do something that gets us away. What if we did something that took us away to help others in that fashion? So that's sort of my question. Now, to do that, you have to create an idea that is a little bit bigger than what everyday routines are. It might be something you'd look at like a dream, and you say, I need to dream a little bit. Well, the thing I laugh about when we talk about dreams is really our everyday life doesn't seem to drum up a lot of dreams. We don't really sit down to cast vision, so to speak, or to have something that we say, this has to be outside of the box. You know where you really dream best? Is when you sleep. Now think about that for a minute. The dreams that you have that carry over and wake you up in the middle of the night. I share with the church some of the dreams that just still have concerns for my family about how much I sleepwalk. I talk in my sleep. Apparently I'm very active when I'm sleeping. I don't remember any of it. My family remembers a lot of them. They like to make fun of me about it. And maybe you sleepwalk, maybe you talk in your sleep, but you get to that 4th stage of sleep and you get to those REMs, and all of a sudden there are things that are happening, and you remember, swimming with your arms and it took you to flight and you were out in the universe somewhere, or you could just imagine yourself in different places, and all of a sudden there you were. You were on the top of Mount Rushmore. Who knew? You meet famous people, you meet different people, and you wake up and you say, none of that's possible. And yet, when your body's at rest, you can imagine the impossible. Now, this is a little bit of a twist, but I want you to follow me for a second. When Shakespeare wrote Hamlet, there's a great soliloquy in there that talks about death, to be or not to be. In fact, it goes on, and in the middle of it, it says, to die, to sleep, perchance to dream. Oh, may it give us pause. It means that this life is ultimately going to end in death. And the ancients, true to every generation, Shakespeare as well, has wondered, what is life after death? What does it mean to die? It was often believed that it was to rest. And often today we might conjure up that finality of death, and we say this is an end. In the Christian faith, we believe that it projects us into a new beginning, something unimaginable. And the thing that I encourage our church this past Sunday is to say, if you're really going to dream big, if you're really going to put yourself out there and you're going to step out of that boat, then you're really going to have to allow yourself to die. You're going to have to meet Jesus at a place where he can speak to you in such a way that you have nothing to lose and everything to gain. The reason that's so powerful for us to imagine is that in order to really dream, we have to put ourselves in that most vulnerable state, whether it be the night that we sleep. In fact, to be fair, a sleepless night, you can't sleep because you're still attached to something that happened, to something that you're afraid of, something that you can't let go. But to truly rest is to truly release yourself to a state of peace. As Christians, we know that sleep is going to ultimately in death give us new life. What Paul said, to live is Christ and to die is gain. That death happens all the time in our life. There's a shadow of death in so many things that we do. And when we open ourselves up to it, not to a place that we are creating our own martyrdom where we can feel sorry for ourselves because life is hard, and we are this self-fulfilling prophecy where we create madness in our lives just so we can feel sorry for ourselves and say, look how hopeless it is. We're talking about something that says, no, I want to surrender because I want to let God speak to me in that surrender, that I am helpless and vulnerable, and I'm going to meet him in his presence and let him do something wonderful with me. You know that has happened throughout your life. There has been something you've committed to by doing so, that believing in something is a great possibility, you gave up something else. When people choose, when a husband and wife want to have kids, they choose that having that child is the death of their individuality, of their independence. That they're allowing themselves to come together, become one, and out of that oneness they have children. Now, children never make sense financially. You shouldn't have them if you want to plan a budget and figure out how to afford them. You can't afford them. And yet, it is so much bigger and greater than you could ever imagine. Now, those possibilities are true for us every year. The question we have to ask is, when are we at a place in our lives that we surrender to the will of God and say, God, in you I find rest. We had a great story this past week that the Susleys family in our church, they did some incredible fundraising for the Stamp Out Cancer. And I love that they shared it in church, so I hope they don't mind them sharing it now, because it is a great story. And their story was that they raised thousands of dollars towards a cause because they have suffered with cancer. And there are so many people that have suffered with cancer, and they have let it convict them in such a way to say, enough is enough. And they surrender to the fact that life is fragile and there is no guarantee for tomorrow. So you know what? Let's do everything we can. It creates a dream of possibilities. You may find yourself in difficult situations. It might just be enough that makes you so anxious and so fearful that you would say to yourself, I need to die to that past. I need to die to that addiction. I need to die to that broken relationship. And I don't know what's in front of me. I don't know what's on the other side. I don't know what tomorrow holds. But I have to believe that if I release from this, that God in that moment will reveal to me what's in the next. That's certainly what he has planned for us after the grave. And I can't believe he's holding off our dreams just for his eternity. It can also be that eternity now. What dreams may come. Amen.